This video will describe for you the features of the Onset HOBOlink web product, which presents data from all of the Hobo remote monitoring systems. To access HOBOlink, go on your browser and type in HOBOlink.com, which we've done. And this is the main login page for HOBOlink. If you purchased a new device recently and don't have a HOBOlink account currently set up, you would want to click on Create an Account. And this prompts you for some information about your name, your email address, what your desired username and password might be, and it gives you the terms of use here, which you'll have to agree with by clicking I agree, and then you will click on Create an Account. We're going to be using an existing account, so we're going to go back up to the original page. So we're going to log into an existing account now, and we're going to give you a brief tour of the features of the HOBOlink product. So here we are. What it does is it takes us to the main devices page in HOBOlink, and it lists all of your registered devices for that specific account. Here we see we have 3 devices registered to our product marketing account. If we wanted to add a device to this account, we would click on Register a Device. And this gives us the ability to give the device a nickname. All Hobo devices are actually defined or described by their serial number. However, you can put in a nickname that would make sense here to your specific application, whether it's a location name or a room number, something like that. So you would put in a nickname, and then you have to enter the unique serial number from the device. That's usually found right on the device itself on a serial number label. And there's also a device key that you need to put in as well, and that's also on that label. And again, it will show you what the data terms might be, and you have to select I agree here, check that off in order to complete the registration, and click on register. And again, we have several devices registered here, so we're going to open one of these up and have a look. In this main devices page, what you see is your devices that are listed by nicknames. They're listed by serial number. They tell you their connection status. It tells you that if the communications are good or not. It also tells you if the onboard relay for this particular product, these are all U30 products. It tells you if the relay contact, if they're open or closed, if you're in alarm condition, and it gives you the ability to get into the configuration, or if you need to remove one of these devices from your account and to put it in a different account, or maybe just to decommission the device, you would click on the little trash can to remove that device from your account. And then someone else can claim it, or if you can put it on the shelf and reclaim it later, however you wish to do that. So let's click on the water monitoring U30 here, and it will take us to the main device page for this particular U30. What you see here is you see several panes of data that represent certain measurements and certain functions of the U30. Here you can see a latest conditions pane, and it says this panel shows the current readings for all attached sensors as well as relay and battery state. These readings here, these temperatures, the relative humidity, the solar radiation, the barometric pressure, etc., were the last readings that the logger saw when the logger connected to HOBOlink. So what you see here is we have several sensors attached. That same data is displayed in graphical format to the right here. What you'll see is individual strip charts for each parameter that's being logged, or each sensor that's connected. These are displayed in a 24-hour, so past day graph. You can click on past week and see the trends during the week, the past 7 days, or you can click on past month and see the past month's data. If your logger's been running for more than a month and you want to look at more longer duration data files, then you will have to open the historical data files from HOBOlink, and I will show you how to do that in just a moment. Also, under latest conditions, you see there is a little toolbar here, and you can click on that to configure the specific sensor, give it a label. If it's an analog input or a pulse input, you can put in scale factors, etc. And we're gonna show you how to do that in just a moment. Under latest connections, what you will see is you will see the log of the connection history for this particular device. If you click on full log here, you will see a table appear that has the entire connection history since the logger was originally launched. And it tells you the signal strength. Either this is a Wi-Fi device that doesn't have very good Wi-Fi signal, but it's still connecting very, very regularly. And if it was a GSM device, it would give you that information, or I'm sorry, cellular device would show you that information as well. Scrolling down, we have a pane called latest data. When the logger connects to HOBOlink, it appends data to these data files. These data files live on the HOBOlink server. By default, the files that are created have a .dtf extension. That's proprietary Hobo file format for this type of logger. You can also, there's an option to select to create a text file also based on that same data. And that's what the CSV files, that's where we can see there's for each data file, there is a DTF file and a CSV, which is comma separated variable or value, which is openable in Excel. You can see that these increment 23, 24, 25. It's appended at the end of the data file name. And what those represent are either each time the logger was launched, relaunched, or when it wraps. You can set up the logger to log data and stop when the memory is filled, or you can select wrapping, which means that when the logger memory is filled, it begins to overwrite. It starts over again and overwrites the old data in memory. Typically, most people select wrapping because the data is being archived at the HOBOlink server. There's no you don't have to worry about losing data. You have basically a rolling backup as that data is written periodically to the server. There's also a tab for setting up custom data. We're going to talk about that in a moment. Basically, what you can do is create a custom data set based on selected sensors from any logger that's in your account. So that, for example, if you have 3 or 4 U30 loggers that are all recording a temperature that you're interested in, you can select all of those temperature sensors to be included in the same data set. And either export it immediately, or you can schedule delivery of that data via email or to an FTP site of your choosing. We're going to talk about that in a moment. Also, if you select all files here, it will show you all the historical data files that are available since the logger was launched. It's important to understand that the .dtf files, which will open with our HOBOware Pro software product, they remain on the server forever. The CSV files are periodically flushed. I believe they stay on the website for about 2 months. So that's a good thing to remember. If you're creating CSV files, you want to offload those periodically. Going back to the main screen here, if we scroll down, we'll see device information. Here it's telling us how often the logger is logging. Again, it's a data logger, so it's logging data internally to its memory periodically. It's logging here every 5 minutes. We have the device configured to wrap, meaning that when the memory gets filled, the old data is overwritten by the new. and there's no problem with that, no worries of losing any data because it is writing that data to the HOBOlink server. It also tells us what our current battery level is, what our nickname is, our serial number, what model the device is here. It's a Hobo U30 station that's running off of Wi-Fi, and what the firmware version is in the logger. If we click on communications, this tells us what the data plan number. When you purchase a U30 product, you select the type of data plan you wish to use. There are several plans available depending on what kind of technology you're using to communicate. If you're using cellular, there's a few different cellular plans that are limited by how much data you transmit per month. The Wi-Fi and Ethernet versions also have those kinds of limitations, and there's also a free of charge plan, which here is the 003. This tells you when the plan was initially purchased. It also tells you when the plan end date is, which here this is the free of charge plan, so it does not end. It also tells us what the signal strength was at the last connection. So now let's take a look at how to configure a U30 using the available tabs. Across the top of the screen you can see we have devices, which shows us all the devices that are included in this particular account. We also have a data tab that, again, we can look at the data files as we looked at previously, the historical data files, or gives us access to the custom data tab. We're going to take a look at that now. So custom data gives you the ability to create what we call a custom query based on any sensors that are available in that particular account. We're not going to get too deeply into this. We're going to have another video that talks exclusively on data delivery. However, basically what you can do, we have data delivery configured here. If you we have two different data queries configured currently. If you click on edit, you can see the different settings that we're using. We're giving it a name. We're saving them in file format of HOBOware CSV, which allows direct import into our HOBOware Pro software product. Tells us what the time zone is and how we want the data to be exported. Down below we can select what devices and what sensors we want to include in the query. You can also select to export data immediately, or you can save this query and use it for data delivery, and we can talk about that in a moment. In our settings tabs, this is where we would go in and look at our account information. We can look at that to here. We can see that this is registered to myself. This is my name, and my email address is included. The units depends on what kind of unit system you want to use. US would be, for example, temperature in Fahrenheit. If you select SI, which is international units, temperature would be in degrees Celsius. Public access, basically this gives you the ability to share a public URL for any of the devices that are in your account. And that gives you the ability to share data with other people who you may want to have access to a HOBOlink page without necessarily granting them administrative rights. So basically what this means is they can see the data displayed, and they can offload data files either in CSV or DTF format, but they can't change any configuration in the system itself. This also is where you would select to configure your logger for web publishing. We have an arrangement with the Weather Underground site. You would have to go to the Weather Underground site and create an account, and then assign a station ID, and then you would come in here and put that information in, your station ID and your password that you set up with Weather Underground, and then check off the little checkbox, and then that data from your U30 or from your remote monitoring system will show up on the Weather Underground site. There are limitations to the type of sensors that are supported. Mostly they're all weather related, so temperature and relative humidity, barometric pressure, wind speed and direction. rainfall, things like that. Those are supported. Third-party types of measurements are not. Again, in export, this gives you the ability to format your data files, the text files, in a specific format, and you can also put in if you have an FTP site you want data to go to, you can put in the default information here, or you can put in your email address, or both. This is where we would set up data delivery. Again, it's based on your previously set up data sets that the data queries that we configured. Here there's 2 available. You give it, basically under general settings, you give it a name, you say how often you want the data delivered. You can select to only include new data, which is a very good feature. You can also select to email on a delivery failure. Again, we're going to do another video that describes this in more detail. And then you can select how you want the data to be delivered, either to an FTP site of your choosing or to an email address, or both. The other tab here is the support tab. And here it gives you access to the online help, which is a browser-based help, which is very helpful and includes a lot of information about that. Also gives you a link to the HOBOlink user's guide. There's also a data logger resources library link that takes you to our website. The contact tab again gives you a link to the same place, the data logger resources library. And there's also an email address for HOBOlink feedback. And there's a form. If you click email us, there's a form you can fill out and send us an email with your feedback. Under terms, this is where we have the terms of use of HOBOlink, and as well as the data uploading terms for your convenience. You have a look at that if you need to. And under features, it gives you a chronology of all the different features that were added over the past few years to HOBOlink, and kind of give you an idea of how it's evolved. So let's go back to the devices page, and what we're going to do is we're going to show you the configuration tab. Here's the configuration tab right here. This includes all the configuration parameters. If you just want to configure sensors, you can click here and it will allow you to configure those sensors as well. They're included in both. So we click on general configuration. This gives us the ability to change the nickname if you wish, change the time zone, and this is where you would select to wrap when the memory fills, or if you uncheck that, the logger will stop logging when the memory fills up. You also have the ability to put in a personalized image for this particular device that will be displayed on the page in a very small icon if you wish. The launch configuration window is, this is where you would give it a launch description. The launch description turns into that is your file name of your data files. So here we're just using the serial number, but you could put in something like site number 1 or something like that, and then your data file will reflect that description name. The logging interval is how often the device logs its data to its internal memory. Here it's logging every 5 minutes. The sampling interval has to do with averaging. It's an averaging function, and it's only supported by a limited number of sensors. If you selected, for example here, if you selected sampling and you put in a 1-minute sampling interval, at your 5-minute logging interval, the value that's recorded is an average of 5 1-minute measurements. There's 2 other checkboxes here. One is force relaunch on next connection. If you go out into the field and you need to replace a sensor, you need to relaunch the logger in order for that sensor to be recognized by HOBOlink and by the logger itself. So if you go out in the field, you change the sensor, you want to check off force relaunch on next connection, the logger will be relaunched by HOBOlink the next time it connects, and a new data file is created. There's also a checkbox for full readout upon power reset. That's a troubleshooting tool in case you have to power cycle the logger in the field in case there's a problem with communications or something like that. The Readout tab is you configure how often you want the logger to connect to HOBOlink. Again, you have two intervals you have to set. One is the logging interval, how often the logger queries the sensors, and then the readout interval is how often the logger transmits the data to HOBOlink and writes the data to the data file. There's also a selection for night mode. Night mode, what it does is it allows you to set a connection interval for some period of time during the day where perhaps you're not so interested in getting regular readouts. And it saves on data connection and battery life, and your with GSM loggers, you're limited to how much data you can transmit per month. In fact, all of the data plans, you are limited to how much data you can transmit per month, and night mode gives you the ability to limit those measurements during any period of time you wish during the day and maximize your connection times at times where you're more interested in getting readouts. Here also you have the ability to check off save data as text file, and that's where you would create a CSV or a comma separated value file as well as a DTF. Every time the logger connects, it writes to those files. The Sensors tab gives you the ability to configure each sensor. You can put in things like a label. Here we have a label called water. This is where you can enable or disable the graph. If you didn't want to see the graph for this particular sensor, you can disable that. You can also enable scaling. These are scale. All of these sensors that are attached to this device are all smart sensors, so they're already pre-scaled. If for any reason you wanted to add some additional scaling, for example, if you think your sensor might have drifted or something in the unlikely event that it did, you could actually put in a multiplier and an offset if you wish. And that you would check off enable scaling. This is more used for third-party sensors, pulse inputs, analog inputs, things like that. And it also gives you the serial number of the sensor and the product code number or the model number. The other thing here under configuration is you can select alarms. And here what you will do is you will go in and you can, there are system alarms available. There's a missed connection alarm, a battery low, memory low, or sensor failure alarm that you can configure. If you click on edit sensor alarms, you can say how you would like to be notified on a missed connection. You can either be sent an email or you can put in a text message. You would have to put in your particular carrier's string, something like text at verizon.com or whatever that might be. You'd have to talk to your specific mobile phone provider to get that information. You can also set it up for a low battery alarm, a memory low alarm, or a sensor failure alarm. And again, you can select either an email or a text message as far as notification is concerned. If we go back, we can also set up sensor alarms. I have a sensor alarm here, and what we can do is have a look at that. This is a temperature alarm. And basically this is we're saying that if the temperature of this particular sensor, and you can select any sensor if you wish, you can say if it's above a specific temperature for whatever number of logged data points, and again it's saying it's logging every 5 minutes, it will send you an alarm, send you an email or a text message. If again, keep in mind that if you just put in one log data point, it's possible, depending on what kind of measurement it is, that you probably want to select more than one log data point to make sure that it is actually in an alarm and just not on the threshold. There's also a checkbox that will send you an email when that alarm clears. If you wanted to add a sensor alarm, you would click here and it would give you the ability to put this in. You can select any of the sensors that are attached to this specific device. The choices are above, below, or outside a specific range. And again, the value is based on what sensor, what kind of measurement that sensor is being is making, what kind of measurement it's making. Here, solar radiation, we can say we want to get an alarm for either below or above or outside a range of so many watts per square meter. Down below here we can see basically what this is a log of the alarms that have happened to date. If you click on full log, it will give you, it'll tell you when each alarm happened and when they cleared. It's a full log of all the alarms that happened since the logger was assigned or claimed to that account. There's also a feature where you can create a what we call a kind of a custom dashboard. That's actually in the devices page, and it's called summary. And what that allows you to do, and we have to log back in again, so let's do that. Basically what it allows you to do is it allows you to select specific measurements from any of the devices that are in your account and display them all on one page. So here we see we have a temperature from one of our U30s, another temperature from the other device that's in our account, and a third measurement from yet another device that's in our account. So you can configure this so that you only see the specific measurements from any or all of the devices on your account. We'll go back to HOBOlink. So that's basically it. That's the basic tour of HOBOlink. This is HOBOlink 6. For more information on our products, HOBOware, HOBOlink, or our remote monitoring systems, go to onsetcomp.com.